together. Yung mga ayaw po magpabakuna ay doctors po. And what is the PGH doing to encourage reluctant healthcare workers to receive the vaccine? Dr.
Tama po yan. I suspect that some of the doctors who thought that it's not going to be a Pfizer vaccine that's going to be given to us, or we're not sure what is going, we're the ones who belong to the maybe group, yung 24%. No? I think pinakamalaki talagang bagay, not favoring any vaccine, is that kung ano yung napangako, nasabi na namin, ay yun po yung mabibigay. I think that will ensure a high attendance or a high appearance of vaccinists during the day. No? Wala po kaming ibang magagawa kundi tuloy-tuloy lang bigay mga information na based on very good science, and of course leading by example also. Kaya po ang ating mga doktor na seniors, not only in the administration but also in the clinical departments, ang mga magpapakita po ng unang pagbabakuna sa kanila during the whole time. We have one whole week to encourage people to come in. I think habang nakikitang dumadami nagpapabukuna, dadami pa lalo po.
All right. Those are all the questions we can accommodate for today. Doc Gap, would you like to say a final message before we proceed with the DOH questions po?
Okay. Ang ano ko lang ho halos 11 buwan na po tayong lumalaban sa COVID. Kumbaga sa basketball, last 2 minutes na po ito. No? This is the last 2 minutes. We have one shot to make to lead by 1 in the end. Just like any UP win that we had in the past sa UAP. Ang sana po ay bigyan natin, let's give it our best shot. We took the assignment, being the first hospital to get the vaccine for its healthcare workers, very seriously. And I think learning from the experience here, madali po siyang i-translate sa ibang mga hospital, although maaari siyang i-modify din. Pero ang punto po ron we are doing our best so that the vaccination process goes smoothly, so that we enjoy the benefits of what other countries are enjoying now. Israel has seen a marked decrease in its symptomatic COVID infections after 600,000 of them have been vaccinated. No? Isipin nyo kung milyon-milyon pa po lalo, no, sa atin. So, katulad ng lagi ko sinasabi, makinig tayo sa tamang balita, wag sa haka-haka, at magtiwala tayo sa sistema na ang mga nagpapatakbo ay ang kapakanan, ang tamang kapakanan lang ang iniisip. No? So I think we should also adjust our fears, kasi po lagi natin kinakatakutan natin is in 1 in 100,000 po, or 10 in 1 million. No? So adjust po natin, tulad po nung takot natin sa COVID, in-adjust din po natin. Nung na-adjust po natin yung takot natin sa COVID, lalong napalakas yung ating laban. So I hope we're able to do all of that, and I'd like to see the day that these briefings become face-to-face already with Secretary Vergere. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Maraming
Dr.
salamat
Gap.
po, Director Gab. Secret.
Yes, thank you very much, Director Gap. Maraming salamat po for accommodating our invite and giving us all of these information. Salamat po.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Risek.
Salamat po. We'll now be moving on for the DOH questions. Yusik Reset. I'll go through the questions very quickly po. For the questions po from, there are a number of questions asking po if there's already community transmission of B117. Yusik Reset.
Yes, no. So for this B.1.1.7 or the UK variant, wala pa ho tayong sapat na ebidensya para makapagsabi that we have already community transmission of this variant. Kasi nga po, yung atin pong samples that we get are still not at that level na masasabi natin na it can already provide us with that predictive factor for community transmission. Dahil if you know, in the past, una, kumukuha lang tayo dun sa mga nakakapag-submit. Pero since this past weeks, nag-target na tayo. No? But again, hindi po nakapagbigay ng targeted specimens yung ibang areas of the country because of accessibility. Like for example, nagkaroon tayo ng issue dun sa transport of specimens coming from Visayas and Mindanao because there are different protocols that are being implemented by specific airlines na pwedeng magdala. So what we did was to coordinate with the Office for Civil Defense. Humingi tayo ng tulong sa kanila para dito sa next runs natin, yung mga samples natin galing sa malalayong lugar na ito ay mapapacilitate na. So we cannot still give that information for community transmission because we still do not have sufficient evidence to say such. Nick? Nick, may lag ba?
Okay, ma'am. Next question po. Ma'am, from Christian Yesoris of Bomboradio, may nagather na po bang enough information ng DOH para doon sa 6 na bagong UK variant cases na bine-verify pa kung local case or ROF?
Nick, before I answer the question, may lagging? May lag ako? May gaps ba? Can you hear me properly? Okay, si Nick daw ang lagging. Okay. Okay. Sige. So, again, question please, Nick. Ako na lang. So, what is the update on the 6 new UK variants and the respective profiles? So, there were 6 cases na sinabi natin na bine-verify natin if they were local cases or they were returning OFW. So, of the 6 new individuals detected with the variant, 5 of them were already verified. So yung isa, 20-year-old female who resided in Mountain Province, the case tested positive during her pre-departure test done here in NCR last January 12. And then she was initially tagged as a National Capital Region case kasi nga dito siya nagpa-test because she was planning to leave the country. The case returned to the Mountain Province where she is currently isolated. So ngayon, ang ating regional office ng ating Cordillera Administrative Region is currently investigating this case and the ongoing na mga contacts niya. So the second would be a 46-year-old female from Pasay City, tested positive for the variant and connected po siya dun sa cluster ng MRT cases natin, yung MRT employees kasi yung anak niya was from the MRT, nagtatrabaho doon. And the case tested positive for COVID-19 on January 25 and is currently undergoing home quarantine. So ngayon, nag-iimbestiga na rin po ang regional office natin sa National Capital Region. The third one is a 37-year-old male reported an address in Bukidnon, but case investigation showed that the case spent long periods of time bago siya magkasakit dito sa Metro Manila as part of his training. So the case initially tested positive on January 25 and ngayon naka-isolate po siya sa isang facility. The fourth, a 25-year-old female with an initial address in Dasmariñas, Cavite. She tested positive on January 31 and now undergoing isolation in Region 3. We are also conducting the investigation through our regional office. The fifth is a 47-year-old female with an address in Las Piñas and was determined to be a returning overseas Filipino from Morocco who arrived in the country on January 12. The initial swab collected on this date turned out to be positive and the case completed the required 10-day isolation. So a second swab was done again and still the case was positive. So she was advised to continue isolating at home. The last case is a 49-year-old male from Rizal area and we are still trying to investigate if this case is a returning OFW. Nick?
Thank you, ma'am. Next question po from Sheila Chrysostom of the Philippine Star regarding the 19 new UK variant cases. How many contacts have been traced? Ilan po ang positive for COVID-19?
Since we have detected, no, and it was released last Friday, we were able to do already, no, this communication to our regional offices and officials from the different local governments na involved or meron silang individual that were identified. So initially dito sa region natin sa Davao, they were already able to contact trace 107 individuals. For the Mountain Province case, they have contacts assessed at 12. And from the Ilocos Norte case, we have 50 na na-contact trace. These are the initial numbers. All of these contacts were submitted for swabbing, and titignan po natin yung resulta nila within the week lalabas yun. Nick?
Thank you, ma'am. Next question po from Greg Gregory of TV5. With more UK variant cases in the country, are we still maintaining our position of not imposing travel restrictions against any country?
Not at this time, Greg. It was agreed on and was recommended also by experts that we cannot remain to be isolated, no, na matagal, no, from the rest of the world. Marami po tayong sinasacrifice kapag nagre-restrictions tayo ng ganito. Since nakikita naman po natin na nag-work na ang ating genomic biosurveillance, nakikita natin kung anong areas na yung mga affected. Second, we were able to revise the protocol kung saan nagkaroon na tayo ng mas appropriate na day of testing. And the third would be that we have encouraged and still encouraging local governments, no, to strengthen their isolation and quarantine protocols. With all of these are our safeguards, no, that even though we don't restrict the travel coming from other countries which are affected by this variant, with this safeguard, we are going to ensure na mape-prevent natin at mamamanage pa rin natin kahit na meron ng mga variants na na-identify. Please remember that these variants nakita na po in 70 plus of the countries, no, for UK. For the South African variant, I think it's 30 plus countries already. So ito pong pag-mutate ng virus na ito, magtutuloy-tuloy po ito dahil sa pagtaas ng kaso. So if we can maintain our cases to just this manageable level, ito pong pagkalat ng transmission na ito ay mapipigilan din po natin. Nick?
Thank you, ma'am. Next question po from Gerard Naval of Malaya. The International Basketball Federation has returned to the Philippines the hosting of the next leg of the FIBA Asia qualifiers. What are the chances for the tournament to be held in a bubble setup in Clark, given that unlike the PBA, the tournament will involve foreigners? What are the requirements organizers need to secure for them to be allowed?
Well, sa ngayon po, hindi pa nakikita ng Department of Health itong protocol kung meron man pong ganitong proposal. So we still need to sit down, of course, with other agencies. Pero alam naman po natin na nakapag-issue na dati ng joint admin order ang Philippine Sports Commission together with the Department of Health so that we can ensure the health protocols are implemented while we slowly open up, no, this sector of society. So antayin lang po natin, and this is an IATF decision to make kapag ka po papayagan yan. So ang sa atin lang lagi, yun sa joint admin order natin with the Philippine Sports Commission, meron po tayong mga nilagay dyan, no, na safeguards para po sa health protocols na dapat ipatupad. Nick?
Thank you, ma'am. From Sheila Chrysostom of the Philippine Star, has BARM already submitted swab samples for genome sequencing? If not yet, is the government planning to take actions against BARM authorities? Can't they be compelled to submit? Baka po may mga new variant na doon. Please provide us with a breakdown of COVID-19 cases in the provinces in BARM.
Yes, Sheila, no? So una, hindi naman tayo punitive at this point, no? Tayo ay magbibigay na ng sanctions agad. Actually, ang mga laboratories natin, very cooperative naman sila. Since we started off with this genomic biosurveillance, nandun talaga yung intent, no, to provide us with these collected specimens. Kaya lang po, ang nagiging issue nga natin, as I've said a while ago, would be access, no, for these specimens to be brought to the Philippine Genome Center. That's why we sat down with the Office of Civil Defense para matulungan na rin nila tayo. Another thing that we have done was to meet with the BARM and ask them ano ba talaga yung issues, why can't they provide us with these specimens that we have said. So ngayon, ang usapan namin, they will be submitting for this run and the next runs, and they will be focusing on areas with clustering of cases, and there is special focus of course dun sa Sabah na, yung sa borders natin. So dyan po, let's expect that in the coming weeks, BARM would already provide us with specimens, pero kailangan maasistehan nga namin sila ukol dito sa access nila for transport for these specimens to be brought to the Philippine Genome Center.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question po. What is the update on the Sinovac application for EUA? Nag-file na po ba na application ang Sinopharm and Moderna for clinical trials and or EUA?
Yung sa Sinovac, nagkukompleto pa rin sila ng mga documents para sa Food and Drug Administration so that the FDA can already complete the evaluation. As to Moderna and ano yung isa, wala pa tayong nadadagdag na nagsasubmit ng ganito for clinical trials.
Thank you, ma'am. Next po, what is the latest in Bontoc, you said?
Dun sa Bontoc, we were able to assess yung kanilang status ngayon. I think that was over the weekend. All of them have already completed the isolation or quarantine required for these individuals that were identified. We are continuously monitoring said cases and also monitoring the number ng mga pagtaas o bababa ba or nagsastabilize na ba yung cases natin dito sa Mountain Province or sa Bontoc. So atin pong tinutuloy ang pagmomonitor. But they have already finished their isolation and quarantine.
Thank you, ma'am. Next po, from Caroline Bongkin. Will the DOH consider having post-COVID clinics for recoveries who are still experiencing post-COVID symptoms?
Well, that would always be an option, Caroline, and we are open to that because we are seeing these people who are experiencing this kind of symptoms now. So ang ginagawa ho natin ngayon, we're working with our medical or specialty societies para magkaroon po ng sapat na ebidensya at mapag-aralan para alam natin kung ano ang gagawin natin. But yes, this can be considered in the future kapag meron na po tayong sapat na ebidensya so that we know how to manage them.
Thank you, ma'am. From Vivian Gula of ABS-CBN, it was said that the current limited global supply prevents vaccine manufacturers from entering supply agreements with the Philippine government. Given this, when do we expect to sign a supply agreement with the vaccine manufacturer? How is the Philippines government pushing to get supply agreements signed despite challenges with the supply?
Well, Vivian, nung una pa lang naman, di ba, yan na talaga ang problema. There is this competition internationally for these vaccines. And we all know that alam naman po natin na yung malalaking bansa ay nakauna na talaga at nakuha nila yung malaking share nitong global supply for vaccines. Kaya nga po ang strategy ng ating gobyerno is to have a portfolio of vaccines. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang isang manufacturer ang pine-pursue natin, but we are pursuing several manufacturers. So as to the agreements, kung kailan po mapipirmahan at kung kailan mafa-finalize, it is with the Office of Secretary Galvez because he's leading the negotiations. Pero kailangan lang po na magkaroon ng kumpiyansa ang mga tao, that everything is being done so that we can be able to finalize agreements and the vaccines will come in the country. Yun lang nga pong talagang commitment ng manufacturers for them to be able to deliver here in the country. Yan po talaga ang pinag-uusapan sa ngayon because as we have said, there is this global shortage. But definitely vaccines are coming and definitely negotiations are ongoing and being finalized.
Thank you, ma'am. Next po, may we get an update on the master list of vaccines for the initial 117,000 doses of Pfizer vaccines? The deadline given to the priority hospitals for their complete list of vaccines was last week. Can we please get a breakdown on how many priority hospitals will be covered by this number and how many doses will go to each of these priority hospitals?
Well, last Friday, we had a meeting with all of these hospitals. It's a total of 34 hospitals, 32 in Metro Manila, and 1 in Cebu, and 1 in Davao. So ito pong mga ospital na ito, binigyan po ng directive that they should be able to submit to us their verified list of vaccinees plus their quick substitution list. Ngayon po, ito over the weekend. No? So ang aking feedback kaninang umaga, most of the hospitals were able to submit yung kompletong listahan. Meron lang pong mga ospital na yung kanilang quick substitution list ay hindi pa ho kumpleto, kaya kinukumpleto lang sa ngayon. So we have 34 hospitals in all that are eligible to receive these Pfizer vaccines.
Thank you, ma'am. From Erwin Aguilon and Caroline, they're asking for regarding the opening of cinemas. Kailan po lalabas ang guidelines sa pagbubukas ng cinemas, and is it safe to open movie houses?
Well, it was discussed in the IATF, no, and one of the safeguards that was used, no, was the guidelines upcoming, which will be coming from the Department of Labor and Employment, wherein they have consulted with an epidemiologist so that they can provide this ventilation requirements for ventilation, specifically in enclosed spaces, para lang makakapag-prevent ng infection. So ito pong guidelines na ito ay manggagaling sa Department of Labor and Employment. As to our guidelines from DOH, we already have existing guidelines for the minimum health protocols. Yun pa rin naman po ang ating kailangang ipatupad. No? Although kapag lumabas po yung sa guidelines ng DOLE, baka magkaroon lang tayo ng additional na supplementary guidelines for us to be able to better explain kung ano ang dapat gawin ng mga tao kung sakaling pupunta po sila sa mga ganitong lugar.
Thank you, ma'am. Last question po for today. Erwin Aguilon of Enquirer is asking, naghain po ng resolusyon sa Kamara ang mga kongresista ng Makabayan para isama sa top priority ang mga guro na mabakunahan kontra COVID-19. Bukod dito, dapat daw pong isama sa listahan ng babakunahan ang mga estudyante para sa paghahanda sakaling muling magkaroon ng face-to-face classes. Sa ibang banda daw po kasi ay tinuturing na frontliner ang mga teacher kaya kasama sa top priority. Any reaction po, Yusek, on this?
Yes, ma'am. Di naman po natin sinasabi na hindi frontliner ang teacher. We consider and recognize their value to society at kung ano po yung kanilang mga roles na importante rin para tayo ay magtuloy-tuloy na dito sa recovery natin. The teachers are part of the priority listing but they are in the Class B part, no? Kailangan natin balikan yung ating prioritization framework kung saan sinabi natin na ang atin talagang basihan para makapag-prioritize would be the exposure and the risk of individuals and the vulnerability. No? So pag tinignan ho natin yung prioritization framework, kaya po iyon yung ating na i-prioritize at the start. Yun po mga directly catering to patients na merong COVID o di kaya ay suspects or probable. Yun pong mga tao na matatanda, senior citizens, because they're the most vulnerable and they are the most at risk, no, for infections and mas malala for deaths. Also yung those patients with comorbids ang pangatlo natin na priority, but again because of the risk, no, dun sa kanilang health and the risk of having severe infections. And then the fourth would be the the indigent population, kasi alam natin yung living conditions nila, which makes them more at risk for this infection. Then the last would be for this class A would be the uniformed personnel because they are helping in the response. Kasunod po yung ating class B, kung saan ang pinakauna doon are the teachers. So hindi po kailangang mag-alala ng ating mga guro at saka ng ating mga kababayan because ang mga guro po ay kasama doon sa mga priorities din naman natin nabibigyan. Kailangan din po laging alalahanin ng ating mga kababayan kapag dumating na po yung mga bakuna and it's sufficient already to provide a more mas marami no sa ating mga kababayan, hindi na natin kailangan mag-prioritization, sub-prioritization. Kung halimbawa dumating na meron na tayong magsabay-sabay na millions of doses, pwede na magkasabay-sabay na bakunahan ng senior citizens, may comorbids, yung mga uniformed personnel, pag natapos na natin sila lahat, and then teachers will come in. So antay lang po tayo, everybody will be given, and everybody is valued no in this population. Yun lang nga po, inuuna lang po natin talaga yung mga mas prone na magkasakit at mas prone na pwede silang ma-ospital at mamatay. Nick?
Thank you, Sec. Ma'am, it's 11:31. Would you like to give your final message po before we end today's forum?
Yes, thank you very much to all of you. Gusto lang ho naming pasalamatan uli si Director Gap Legaspi ng Philippine General Hospital sa kanyang pakikilahok sa ating media forum ngayong araw na ito. Sa papalapit na pagdating ng karagdagang proteksyon mula sa COVID-19 vaccines, idinidiin po ng Department of Health ang bisa ng ating minimum public health standards laban sa pagkalat o pagkakahawa ng anumang uri, mutation, or variant ng COVID-19. Ang ating pong wastong pagsusuot ng mask at face shield, pagpapanatili po ng physical distance, pag-iwas po dun sa mga masisikip at kulob na lugar, malimit at wastong pag-uugas ng kamay, ay mga napatunayang depensa na po natin laban sa COVID-19. So kaagipat po ng pagpapanatili ng kaligtasan, pinapaalala ng DOH ang halaga ng ating kalusugan. So ngayong buwan po ng puso, let us form lifelong habits of making healthy and well-informed decisions to prevent getting non-communicable diseases, kagaya po ng alta presyon at diabetes. Piliin po natin ang mga bagay na lubos na makakabuti sa kalusugan gaya ng regular na exercises at healthy diet. Para po sa mga karagdagang kaalaman, nariyan po ang DOH Philippine Viber Group at ang official Facebook pages ng DOH na handang maghatid ng wastong impormasyon para sa ikabubuti ng ating mga sarili. Bilang katatapos lamang po ng Valentine's Day, alalahanin po natin ang mensahe ng pagkalinga at pagmamalasakit na dala ng araw na ito. Sa panahon ngayon po, ang ating masusing pag-iingat at masusing pagsuporta sa Vida Solution Plus laban sa COVID-19 ang nagpapatotoo ng ating pagmamalasakit para sa isa't isa. So naway dali natin sa ating puso at sa ating isip ang pagmamalasakit na ito upang maging tiyak ang kaligtasan, hindi lang po tayo, pati po ang ating pamilya at ang kaligtasan ng lahat. So thank you very much and see you all on Wednesday. Thank you, Nick.